Yeah, just started. The House and Committee for consideration of the New Zealand International Convention Centre Bill is resumed. Members, before the dinner break we were debating Part 2. The Honourable Trevor Mallard has the call. He's just over 4 minutes remaining.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Honourable Trevor Mallard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I think it's fair to say that we just got started, and I was beginning to remind members about the precedent set by that honourable national member Josiah Hannon, former member for Invercargill, and the Minister of Justice and Attorney General in the Holyoake government, who, on a matter of party policy, following the 1960 election, put a bill into the House as Minister in charge to reintroduce capital punishment, and then had the courage of his convictions to vote against that bill because he knew it was wrong. And my challenge to National Party members opposite is to apply their consciences in the same way, and notwithstanding what their leader said on the hustings and the pressure that he's put on them in their caucus, to stand up for what they believe in, because I cannot believe that members like Jonathan Young opposite truly believe that the lost family homes, the lost marriages, the suicides and the murders that will flow from this bill are in fact an appropriate thing for a National Party person to be voting for. And I want to say that even in the time in my house, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman, there used to be a tradition of independence of thinking in the National Party and the ability to vote with one's conscience in a way that I think for many years, and for most of years of the party's history, has in fact been wider and more flexible than that in the Labour Party. But under Stephen Joyce and under John Key, that tradition of the ability to think for oneself appears to have gone. Mr. Speaker, I have made it clear to the House in the past that I voted for the introduction of the original casino legislation, and members opposite might say shame on you. But Mr. Chairman, the point is that I then looked at the evidence, I listened to submissions, I read what people had to say, and I had the courage of my convictions to reverse my position and to vote against the final reading of the bill, because I thought that that was the right thing to do. And I challenge members opposite to find their conscience. Mr. Speaker, the next point I want to make is one of those which might be described as only in New Zealand or in some other banana republic. And that is the position of the Honourable John Banks with regard to this legislation. People will remember, without going into any of the detail, that a prima facie case has been established against Mr. Banks for not declaring donations from Sky City. And what do we have now? We have exercised in this House as recently as this afternoon by the Honourable John Banks a vote in favour of the very people who gave him a donation which he attempted, at least on a prima facie basis, illegally to hide from the country. Mr. Speaker, in any other country in the world, in any other proper democracy in the world, a person in that position would say, OK, the matter is before the court. You know, I don't expect them, well, I think an honourable, Mr. Chairman.
Honourable Trevor Mallard.
Mr. Chairman, I think an honourable person might resign, but I don't expect Mr. Banks to do that. What I do expect the member to do is to say it is not appropriate, because of a vestige of integrity, to vote in favour of the people who gave me the donation which I then hid from the public. Mr. Chairman, this is the part of the bill which effectively tips over the sinking lid policy of the Auckland Council with regard to pokie machines. Now, I think it's fair to say they were uneven. Manukau led the way as far as the sinking lid was concerned, but it's now across Auckland working relatively well. We heard from Jonathan Young and Pesita Sam Lotuinga how well it was working generally across Auckland. I did have to point out to them, of course, that most of their colleagues, when the sinking lid was introduced, voted against it. They were not supportive of it then, they're supportive of it now. But what this particular part of the bill does is tips that on its head and means that it will have the opposite effect and will have a massive increase, not just in the numbers of pokie machines, but as a result of this, in the turnover from those pokie machines. Because, as you're aware, Mr. Chairman, machines within casino setups open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, sometimes with queues to those machines, have a much higher turnover than would otherwise be the case. Mr. Speaker, I would like to refer to the schedule. This is it's an interesting bill. Missing from the schedules which are attached to the bill, is most of the agreement, which should be in the bill, and which we're saying overrides the letter of the law in this case. Now, how the Attorney-General can sit in the chair and say that this is adequate legislation, I don't know. But what is clear is that things which are allegedly on a website, somewhere on the Internal Affairs site, override the letter of the law in this bill. Well, that's just wrong. But there is some stuff. There is some stuff in here, and I just want to refer to the first of them, and that's Clause 7.2 of the agreement, and 7.2a, the fact that the initial term of the licence venue is extended from its current expiry date of the 1st of February 2021 to the 30th of June 2048. Mr. Chairman, the two reviews that were meant to take place during that time, meant to be massive reviews, massive, important, the ability of government to re-tender, to make decisions as to having another operator come in, maybe on an exclusive basis, or maybe to have a competitor. That's wiped. That's gone as a result of something which is sitting in a schedule of this bill, and that's just wrong. Then there are lots of other things. I mean, one of the things. I mean, we know that people lose too much money because they fire these $20 notes. They fire $20 notes into machines and get credits. And what does this bill do? It increases from $20 to $100 the size of the notes that are allowed to be fired into the machine, one after another, and another again, and another, and another, and another. So people can flick away tens of thousands of dollars in $100 notes so that they can get their credits, which they then generally going to lose, because that's what happens when people... well, the House does always win, and I tell you what, the House has won exceptionally well out of this deal because they were playing poker with people with their eyes shut, playing poker. And I want to, I've criticised the officials for some stuff, but I do want to give the officials praise, because I think the advice that the officials kept on giving to ministers is, you're being done over here. You're being done over. The House is beating you. You should not accept this deal. I believe that the Moby officials passed on the Treasury advice as to the private benefit to Sky City of this. I believe that they had honesty and integrity and gave the right advice to the ministers. I do criticise them for not showing the same independence at the Select Committee.
David Shearer.
Mr. Chair, I've spoken on this bill before, and I have to say each time that I do this, I